Joining us on the How Did You podcast today is Stuart Peters, a DMU student now turned freelance whilst also working at De Montfort University and Phoenix Cinema. How are you doing, Stuart?
I'm all right. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, nice introduction there.
As mentioned in the introduction, you attended De Montfort University, but did you ever see yourself going to university? Did you ever see yourself ever ending up in a cinema, or was it somewhere like an astronaut job like everybody else seems to do on the podcast?
It's a good question. When I first I didn't, to begin with. I didn't want to work in film or media. I remember, God, going back, it's 10 plus years now when I was doing my A levels. I studied film then and saw it as kind of, I don't know if it's changed since now, but back in my day, but you do kind of 4 A levels, you drop one after a first year and then focus on 3, and probably around those would kind of be what you go on to do, obviously, at university, in career, etc. And film was my extra one. And I just kind of took it as I enjoy film. I am a lover of film. I'm passionate about it. So I kind of took it as something that I knew I'd do okay with, and enjoy going forwards. What I didn't expect is kind of through the course of that, kind of, I guess, to an extent, falling further in love with it and wanting to do it going forward. So, I continued that on. I didn't drop film. I carried on going. I finished my A levels with it, did okay. I actually took a year out working. So I worked in, everybody probably has done at some point, I worked in retail. I wasn't 100% certain what it was I wanted to do. At the time, I did drama and theatre studies as well. And did kind of performing arts stuff outside of college at the time, and then continued that on when I was doing retail work. And through that, I essentially kind of went, actually, I'd maybe like to do the transition from being in front of the camera and performing to being behind the scenes doing production stuff. And that kind of continued on into doing my degree in film at De Montfort. Kind of did a little bit more heavily focused, and selected modules that had practical experience as well as theoretical, and kind of continued that on, and then did a master's in the film production. And continued that into, as you mentioned, kind of freelance work. Continued studying, but when I kind of went to university, there was, and it probably is even more so now, I would say, there's that pressure that you need to kind of go do something that, straight off the bat. Whereas I was very much kind of, actually, I'm going to take some time to consider what it is, my options, and what it is that I want to do. And I'm very glad that I did that looking back. I did particularly enjoy working at retail. I know some people do. I don't know. Having Christmas back is now nice. Having kind of periods where you can have a bit of a break is very nice to have now. It made me realize what it was I wanted to do and go forwards. And I think that's important in today's society, especially, is give yourself some time to consider what it is you want to do and what you want to go and do and explore. I have countless friends and people around me that I've known since I was a toddler, that are still my very close friends, and I'm very fortunate to have that surrounding network of friends that have all kind of gone off and done things, and other people that I've known, and then actually not continued that further and decided in the past few years after finishing their degrees and studying, saying, actually, I want to do something else, and I wish I had not rushed into things. I think that's important to emphasize, take your time, realize what it is you want to do, and then go forwards with that.
Obviously, you mentioned that you wanted to get behind the camera. If you specifically had to pick a film for you that you wanted to work on, what kind of genre or film would it be?
That's a good question. My favorite film is Singing in the Rain. And I grew up on, it's probably what influenced me to do drama and performing arts and things as well. That kind of golden age of Hollywood, but more so to work with someone like Gene Kelly, or someone of that kind of ilk or forte that's 100% committed, determined, passionate. The stuff that I've read since, and what others have said, that sometimes that goes too far, and drains a lot of people, and is hardworking. But I've worked on productions and things, and kind of, it's been hard work. It's been long days, and everybody kind of reaches that point of, oh my God, I just want a break. But it's always whenever you finish something and you kind of take a step back and go, wow, we worked on that, we put that together, that was insane. Awesome experience. I've always wanted to work on something like that. To work with someone that would, is 100% committed, passionate, and determined, and someone like Gene Kelly for me kind of epitomizes that. Fred Astaire, that kind of era. It's very hard to compare that to someone nowadays that we see. There's some fantastic talent and stars and directors and people out there. I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve, and their kind of work. Cinematographers like Roger Deakins, Hans Zimmer, the typical ones that everybody knows, everybody's aware of. To ever be in a position where you could work with one of those, I just kind of drink it in and soak it in like a sponge. I've worked with some fantastic people and some great characters behind the scenes and behind the camera. If that ever opportunity arose, that would, but someone kind of that era of cinema, if I could ever have worked with them, I would love to. I would have loved to.
That clearly shows that you're a musical adorer, and you've then gone on to produce your own short musical, which was called Bus Stop, which was, like you say, taking inspiration from Singing in the Rain. How was it to produce that? Because that must have been a difficult time being out of uni and doing something for yourself.
You've done your research. We actually kind of, that was produced during my master's towards the end of it. So part of the master's that I did at the time, it was the first year it ran. We had a little bit more free will and areas to play with probably then, since it's kind of been ironed out and tightened up. I had a really great opportunity to work with people at Pinewood Studios as kind of a placement kind of seminar that we did, semester that we did within that, and met some great people along the way. And contacts since then. It was stressful. I think any production I've worked on, or anything that I've worked on, there is stress involved. It's managing that, and everybody's kind of in the same boat. I'm very much of that mindset of, work as a team, communicate, collaborate, work together. It was a great experience. We had a few £1,000 budget that we'd managed to raise through crowdfunding and a little bit of funding here and there from university support and other things. And it was just, I'd written and produced that. So for me, there was a lot of kind of, I guess, on the line for me in terms of wanting to make sure it was as best as it could be within the constraints of the budget we had. I'm a northerner, so I'm very, I'm strict with money. Anyways, I'm fairly sensible with that kind of thing. My dad's an accountant, so I've probably grown up with it, with that kind of pushed into me. I'd written that, and to kind of see that go through that process, it was over a period of months. Casting it, getting people involved, that I've worked with before, people on the course, and people that we'd met along the way. I just kind of remember the first day on set of just kind of us going, right, we're at this point now, and we shot it over 4 days, intensive days, long days, especially for me. I remember kind of coming home, looking at my watch, going, right, 4 or 5 hours sleep, then we're back at it again every day, and it took its toll. I have a permanent reminder of it for myself, which I don't know if you can see it on the camera. There's a little gap on my beard on my lip. I actually, on the last day of filming, had a mini accident where I had to go to the hospital and get stitches, which was fun. But I was back on set in an hour, ready to roll. I didn't it took its toll as the day went on. I think it hit it. I won't go into it in too much detail. Came off a bicycle, my own fault. I was the health and safety first aid trained person as well, so I kind of was the person dealing with it. But we just kind of cracked on. I had a very, very good and strong crew around me. I was on the phone in and out of getting driven to the hospital, getting my stitches, coming back. They probably pumped me full of medication and tablets that kept me going. I remember crashing in the afternoon, very much so. We were filming in summer and it was kind of 25, 30 degree heat at times. And yeah, it was hard work. But it was a great experience, great opportunity, you know. With me being very fortunate enough to have, obviously work at an independent cinema, we got it up on the big screen. We got a kind of a screening of it with friends and family, everybody involved. We got it shown at Pinewood there as well, at their cinema. It was something that has very fond memories, you know, I've kind of got my mementos and things along throughout the production of making it kind of in my own office space back home, and yeah, still have that, and it's, you know, within my portfolio, and you know, love the experience. You know, it was a great opportunity and great fun, and some great people that I worked with, and yeah, to kind of see that go through into fruition was quite emotional, especially at kind of the latter stages. Yeah, really, very much so.
Throughout all of that, you mentioned that because this was your first production, it was kind of a proving ground. And whilst being at university and taking the stressful time to sit a degree, you also started at the Curve as a film assistant. But now, not the Curve, sorry, the Phoenix. That's completely messed up in my head. But you started at the Phoenix and you were a film assistant from 2015, but then as we speak today, whilst also juggling a PhD, leading a module along with Adam, you're also the duty manager there. What has the experience been like since starting, really?
Crazy. You know, I've been at the Phoenix now for best part of 6 years. And I feel like I'm also one of like the kind of the pillars of you know, and being there. I mean, we've had projectionists and people there before me, but you know, I'm one of those that if anybody ever speaks to me, they're always like, "Oh, you could do this," like kind of do a bit of everything. You know, since I've been there, you know, I was very lucky that my undergraduate degree at DMU, we spent a lot of our time at the Phoenix. Within kind of a partnership that still continues today. So still, you know, see people that were in my shoes coming through the door week in, week out. That we had screenings there. So we'd have kind of a lecture there on you know, whatever it was we were looking at that week. And then a screening afterwards of a film related to that, you know, that it was a great opportunity to watch films on the big screen that I'd kind of watched at home on TV and stuff, you know, some stuff that I'd not seen before. You know, some stuff that was kind of silent cinema, kind of long haul stuff that you kind of sat there. It's 2 and a half hours of Metropolis, for example, German expressionist film. Yeah, great opportunity. And I remember at the time when we were first introduced to it, that the university at the time had a partnership deal that meant that you could do kind of an internship at the Phoenix in various roles, and you know, the film program in one that was very interesting to me. You know, I applied, was fortunate enough to get the position at the time, and still there. It was only a 6-month position, internship. Within that period, I got a job permanently there, just working on the bar. I've since worked on a kind of front of house as an usher. Done a little bit on the box office, worked my way up to the management team. And I'm still there now. And yeah, it's kind of that wealth of experience within it. I ended up staying for 9 months. I guess I was doing something okay within the film program team. You know, there's still a great team there, a great bunch of guys. Jake, program manager, still there. We're great friends now. I still help out every now and then when I can around my workload. And yeah, you know, built up some great contacts, networking, you know. With us being an independent cinema, we work with the Independent Cinema Office, the ICO, work with the BFI a little bit and things as well. And kind of periodically, like 3 or 4 times a year, an independent cinema around the country would host kind of a screening event for 3 or 4 kind of back-to-back intensive days of just films upcoming, essentially. And it was an opportunity for us as an independent cinema, obviously, to see what was coming up. Within those months ahead, you know, we'd get an early showing of it. It was all kind of hush hush. We weren't allowed to say anything about it on social media or anything. Obviously, we could talk about it amongst ourselves, and there was networking opportunities around that, and it was a great opportunity and experience to meet others from Derby Quad, Nottingham Broadway, I think it's Bristol Watershed, other independent cinemas, see how everybody operates, how we're working, and still communicate with them. Still, guys at the ICO that we worked with as well. And yeah, it was great fun. And yeah, there's 3 or 4 intensive days of films were tough. I remember we always used to say, film after lunch, pick an easy watch, because you're 9 times out of 10 probably going to fall asleep. Pick something that's not too bad. And I remember, obviously, I was kind of going back to musicals at the time. Around doing that, I mean, I did that even after I'd finished my internship. I still continued doing that with Jake. I remember we were seeing La La Land at one, and I was like, obviously being a musical fan, I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. I ended up watching it twice over that weekend, because I knew it'd be a few months until I get to saw it again. I was like, I'm gonna watch this again. And yeah, it was great. And yeah, I worked my way up since. There's regular customers you see day in, day out that come in all the time. You get chatting to them. It's given me the opportunity to see what it's like from an exhibition perspective and relate that to kind of my production work and what my PhD is now, and have that experience of, programming films, see how it operates, kind of see things from a terms and box office perspective, working with distributors. I'm fortunate enough now to be the guy at the Phoenix that looks after our posters and kind of displays. So I'm always the first one that gets all of that, and he goes, "Ooh, I can have this once we finish the run." So I've got a stack of posters in my loft that will probably be organised someday. That I've got. But yeah, it's been a great ride, great fun. Any position and things has highs and lows, as any stuff does. And we're now kind of working our way through into this year now, 2022, of undergoing an expansion. So hopefully within the next year or so, we're going to have 4 screens rather than 2 at the moment. That's what we're planning on. And it will give the opportunity, for the cinema to kind of grow even further, which is to see where it's come from to where it is now has been quite a ride.
You talk about development, and I guess with being at a cinema, carrying on the roles that you do, you'd always be on your feet. But you're a marathon man, aren't you?
I am. I've run 3 marathons.
And wow, that must have been an experience.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I kind of ended up doing that, I did. My dad's a runner. I always used to joke when I was younger that it was a midlife crisis thing of starting to run, and then I ended up catching the bug. My sister runs, still does, so we're a bit competitive within the family. And I ended up, the first marathon I did, because I'm from Hull originally, I did back home in Hull. My dad was running, and then my dad's obviously got a couple of friends that run as well of his age. And I remember being, how old was I? I think I was 21, first one I did in Hull. Then the following year, I think I did the whole one again, and then I did Leicester kind of back to back. It was like a 2-3 week gap between them, and I kind of went, well, I'm going back to uni. There's another one coming up. Let's just do another one for the fun of it. The catering manager at the cinema at the time as well was an avid runner too, so we trained for that one together. So I always had someone that I ran them with. So the first full one I did, I ran with my dad and one of his friends. My dad didn't run it the second time, but his friend did as well. So it's kind of a family friend. So I ran it with him, and then did the third one. And yeah, it was weird because I was determined to get under 4 hours and improve my time. So the first one I did 4 hours 15. Then I did pretty much 4 hours on the dot, and then I did 3 hours 57. So I kind of improved slightly every time. But the reason I ended up doing those was I kind of finished my undergrad. It was my first or second year. I kind of finished it. You have that down period within the summer. I was working still. I was at the cinema. And again, the job that I worked in retail, I transferred from Hull to the store in Leicester. So I was doing that as well. But I just wanted something alongside it that would just kind of give me a goal towards or determine towards. And I ran all of the 3 that I did for charity. The first one for Alzheimer's Society, because I had a grandparent that suffered with Alzheimer's at the time. that's no longer with us, and then also another grandparent that had prostate cancer, who's since passed us also. And I ran kind of the first one for Alzheimer's, the second two for what do you call it? That's completely lost my mind. One of the charities that's within cancer research.
Macmillan.
That's the one. Thank you. The prompt there. Yeah, Macmillan. I ran the second two for Macmillan. So I had kind of a personal aim and goal within it as well, which kind of kept me going. And also, I was determined to kind of do a solid time. But again, it was just something of, I guess, boredom. Does that kind of work? But it was just something I was determined to do. So it was always on the bucket list. And I did the first one, and I remember finishing it being kind of flat out on my feet and going, never again am I doing that. And then you recover, you get 2-3 weeks down the line, you get kind of itchy feet, and I caught the bug and did 2 more. And then at that point, I kind of went, right, I need a break. I still run now, never that far. I do kind of look back and think, God, I like the fitness levels I was in then to now is very different. I'm nowhere near that level anymore, but I would like to do another. I've always said I'd like to do a 4th and just absolutely blitz my time, do kind of 3:45, 3:30 and go, right, that's the best I'll probably ever achieve. I'm at an age that, as I get older, I'm going to get worse, probably. I could probably do that. And then I'd like to do a 5th one and it be, on a bigger scale. So London Marathon, Paris, Boston, New York, something of that ilk, just for an experience. I'm not going to go for a crazy time, just to have that opportunity to go somewhere that would be like, wow, this is awesome. Because I know if I did London, the first 2 or 3 miles is basically walking pace because it's just crowds and hordes of people. But I'd want to do that and kind of sign off on a 5th one and go, right, done. Like, that's me out. Beat my PB, beat my dad's PB. I'll never go on about it again. My sister's yet to run one. She's adamant she will, but I want to do the time. I'm like, nobody's catching that. Maybe if I ever have a kid in the near future, they might. I want to do that. But it was more of a personal goal and just something that I wanted to do to keep myself busy, I guess.
You talk about getting older, and throughout the past 2 to 3 years, we've all had to live through a pandemic. What was it like, excuse me, working at the cinema and adapting it to working from home at the cinema? Because you must have still been part-time at De Montfort University, because that must have all changed there and then on the spot.
Yeah, it was going through those early stages. And those kind of first few months before I think we went into lockdown in this country. It was just kind of dealing with it and managing it. And I think we were all kind of thrown into this position of like, we've never been in this situation before, especially those of us, I say a younger age, I'm a little bit older, but, we've not kind of lived through something in that scenario before. And it was just a kind of whirlwind, kind of period of months. At the time, I was still lecturing, everything kind of shift online and adapted. A lot of what I taught was practically based, and that kind of all got put on a shelf, which, was unfortunate for the students and people put in that situation at the time, but it was something completely new for us from our side as well, and kind of managing that and their expectation and trying to deliver it in as the best possible ways as we could. We've adapted since then and changed things since then, and at the moment kind of back to normal-ish. There are still those online elements and platforms and things there, but it's kind of pretty much almost back to practical with restrictions and health and safety elements and things in place, considering the pandemic and COVID and things still being around. The cinema itself, we were still open at the time. I just kind of remember us getting to that point of a week or so before of it being obviously quite quiet because of the circumstances. People didn't want to venture out, and it's kind of all good. What's going to happen? Kind of thing. I'm not going to get into politics and the government, but it's probably, in my opinion, the worst government at the time to have to deal with this. We've tried to make the best of a bad situation. The majority of us got obviously with the cinema, we closed, and we went on to, the majority of us went on to furlough. I was still teaching a little bit at the time. That was also at the time I was kind of getting the bug of wanting to kind of go back to studying and academia and do my PhD. So amidst the start of that, I went back to school essentially as well. So that kind of kept me busy at the within those stages for a little while. I had obviously a gap in kind of teaching with academia, and also with the cinema being closed. We reopened again, obviously. I think it was later that summer, towards the back end. I think it was like late August, September. I think, I'm trying to think when Tenet came out. I remember that being one at the time that was like, this is kind of the welcome back to cinema as being open. Obviously, chain cinemas and others opened. We actually didn't open at that stage. We waited until September, October time, just because of films being released and things around the time. It wasn't enough to fill the schedules, essentially. And every other week, something was getting pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. It's still happening now to an extent. You know, we've just seen Serrano is a film we were intending to show at Phoenix that's just been pushed back to end of February, I think, even with it being considered for awards and things now. I think Peter Dinklage was nominated for the Golden Globes, which was it last night, I think? I've not actually had a look yet. I think. And, you know, it's other big scale, like Morbius has just been pushed back to April, I think, now. It was meant to be this month. You know, so it's still happening now. Yeah, we opened again, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, for a brief period in October at the time. And then obviously again in the UK, we went into lockdown again. So it was again that balancing act and juggling things. And then we've since been back open. We opened back when we were allowed to. I think, was it March or April of the following year that we then came back. We've been, you know, touch wood since, back open and doing okay. You know, obviously again, familiar faces and people back, which is nice. Yeah, back teaching as well, which is, you know, as I said, getting back to what it was before. And it's been nice. And then my PhD work alongside it, so I've kind of kept myself busy with it. You know, I'll be one of those people that complains and moans about being busy all the time and having no free time. But whenever I get to that stage where I've got a bit of free time, I get itchy feet. So, you know, it's good to kind of be in this situation at the moment. But yeah, I guess everybody went through the same thing with the pandemic going on, and we're hopefully getting towards the other side of it now.
But it must have been quite different for you to scale down DMU lecturing, but then also scale it up in a way because you were consuming it once again for yourself.
I mean, I think you know, looking after ourselves and mental health, if anything, within that period across the board for everyone, you know, probably was already, I mean, mental health should be at the forefront anyways, personally, and we should all be looking after ourselves, both mentally, physically. But that became even more so at that point. You know, I mean, I'll hold my hands up and say I suffered a little bit. I think everybody did. And it was kind of being thrown into a situation of a routine just completely changing, you know, for me. You know, no gyms, no, you know, limited exercise. You know, I like to mix things up. So kind of being thrown into a position of I could only go out and run. I can only work out from home. You know, I wanted to go swimming. You know, I wanted to be in the gym and do different things. You know, I'm an avid cyclist now, which I never thought I would be. You know, it's kind of, you're looking after yourself, and yeah, being thrown into a situation where we're all just kind of stuck indoors, you know, almost like cabin fever-esque element to an extent, I would say. And it was kind of getting back into that, you know, doing it steadily, I think is sensible, you know, going from kind of cold turkey to back into doing things, getting back up to speed with things now. It was really tricky, and I think, you know, everybody should be aware of that now and kind of consider your mental states, especially from a male perspective. Obviously, that's always been something that we probably shy away from, and having that, you know, positive reinforcement and communication amongst ourselves across the board, within that, and more so, you know, like within the fields that we're in, you know, working with whatever field you're in, you know, more so for me, obviously teaching and filmmaking and practical kind of stuff, you know, having that open dialogue with people of what you're comfortable and uncomfortable with, and with the pandemic considerations and things like that as well. It's just kind of getting back into that and trying to return to some sense of normality. Let's hope that the wave that we're currently amongst now isn't as severe as others. And with the vaccines and boosters and things out there, of trying to put us in the best situation as we can in a difficult place. And it's getting back to that stage.
We spoke, I think it might have been last in maybe March, April time, and we were talking about the fact that there's the elderly that you've got to think of, but if we had to go back to you on a personal level, and do you look up to anybody? Is it your PhD colleagues? Is it someone that leads your PhD with you? Or is it just somebody completely unrelated, like you mentioned beforehand, the aspiration to work within or work and study musicals? Is it someone from that genre?
I mean, something within that ilk now is probably someone more like Damien Chazelle. I love Whiplash. I love La La Land. First Man was okay. Was it First Man? I think the one about Neil Armstrong and things like that. Someone like that is who I'll probably look up to now. I think it's important to have those aspirations and those goals and people that you look up to within, the industry, that you're wanting to do in the future or amongst. But I also have kind of people that I look up to, with friends and colleagues. Like, I think surrounding yourself with those, positive people is always a good thing. And, the good thing about having friends that you've known for quite some time is you have that open honesty with each other. That if I ever do something or they do something, 9 times out of 10, we probably tear into each other, because that's the kind of people we are. But it's always kind of a friendly kind of thing, and, within support of things. And it's having that network around you. My supervision team for my PhD, I have a first and second supervisor are awesome. They're always going to support and give advice and guidance. More recently, because I've been doing so much, I was full-time on my PhD, and we kind of had that open and honest conversation of, look, I'm doing too much at the moment, and probably strip it back to part-time, which is sensible. I'm still in my mindset of I want to get this complete in a similar time frame, but it's just that ease of stress and anxiety, on myself of, oh God, I'm behind on work. Whereas now actually I'm in a situation where I'm probably up to speed, and because I've made that transition over to part-time. I look up to those people. I look up to a lot of my family. Probably part of the influence of me doing those marathons was I looked up very much so to my grandparents, which I've only got one left now, unfortunately. But I looked up to those as a kid. I spent a lot of time with them. Spent a lot of time with my cousin, who's a little bit older than me, who probably how I view in the same mindset of my friends. That we probably rip into each other all the time, but it's great. But we'll always check in on each other and see how we're doing. I've got family that I look up to and have looked up to, and I think a lot of the time, the people who we are probably been molded by how we've been brought up. And I'm fortunate enough to come from a family that's caring, looks after one another, and works hard. And that's probably been drilled into me from a young age. And it's being kind. And when opportunities come, and things come up in what it is you do, don't be afraid to go for them. Sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not, but don't learn from it. Don't let it get you down. And communicate with them. My parents are awesome. I'll always be grateful for them. And yeah, my grandparents as well. They probably got me as a kid into musicals and that kind of state. So I'll always be grateful for them. And still to this day, me and my dad watch Singing in the Rain. It's usually always on at Christmas. On Christmas Day, we normally at least watch it. I remember one year, I think I fell asleep after being so drowned in turkey and Christmas dinner that I was just, having that post feast nap, and I fell asleep probably for about 10-15 minutes worth in it. And I remember my dad waking me up and going, you're gonna miss this bit. And I was like, what have I missed? And I probably recalled almost line for line the 10, 15 minutes that I'd missed. That's how many times I've seen it, but I still love it. And we still do that. And, you know, we used to watch that stuff with my dad's father, my granddad, and still to this day. And, you know, I still have reminders and things of them. And that's probably what pushed me to do the marathons as well. But I think it's good to have those, you know, people in your life that are close to you that you look up to, but also those, you know, within whatever field it is that you do. But there's always that fear of, you know, if there's ever the day you met them, are they going to be completely different to how you viewed them? But, you know, that's something maybe if that time came, you'd cross. But yeah, that's what I think is worth having, you know, hopefully other people have the same.
You are who you are because of the people around you, the environment you sit in. But if we had to change that environment, where do you see yourself if you had to think about yourself in a year's time? Is the PhD going to be done, or do you think that you may have moved on from DMU, but you may have moved on from Phoenix? Who knows?
I don't know. That's a good question. You know, I guess it depends on what opportunities arise and how things. I'll probably still be doing the PhD. I'm just finishing up my just over my first year, approaching my annual review, which, you know, is I'll get a bit nervous, but it should be fine. I'll still be doing that more than likely. Possibly doing teaching and things still, you know, maybe at the cinema. Hopefully, you know, at that point, the pandemic is coming to an end, or we're surpassing it. You know, I fully expect us to probably get to a point where we're just kind of living with it. And it won't hopefully be affecting people as much. Obviously, you know, casualties and deaths from that will be as minimal as possible. You know, that's fingers crossed. Maybe if some practical opportunities and things arose within that, you know, I'm still kind of in contact and work with people that I did work with at the time, and keep in touch with them and see how everybody's getting on. If that arose, you know, there's opportunities there. You know, there's people that I've worked with from the BFI, from Film Hub Midlands. Those guys are awesome. There's someone that I used to work with at the Phoenix that now works with them, so I can still keep in touch there when I can. And yeah, see where we come. I don't expect much change, to be honest. You know, I'm looking forward to the cinema expansion and seeing where we're at with that, what opportunities arrive with that, and how it's going to look. You know, the university is always changing. I'm starting to teach on a new module from today, actually. So hopefully there'll be stuff and things within that, and I can kind of put my own stamp and personality to certain things. So we'll see where we're at, if opportunities come and arise, and you know, if other people are in a similar boat to me, or just starting out on that journey. You know, people have helped me along the way, and I'm always of the mindset of I'd always want to return that to people as well. You know, I think that's the best mindset to have within our industry, and try and help people to kind of mold along that journey as well. And it's always awesome kind of seeing an ex-student or someone you've worked with, seeing where they're at, you know, what they're doing, and having that contact with them. So we'll see what happens.
If we had to end it all here, what is the one bit of advice you'd give to someone within the media or just within life?
Good question. I don't know. I'm probably too overly positive person, and I think sometimes students go, "Oh, yeah, I'm struggling with this. I'm panicking about this," and I was like, "It's fine. We'll get there. It's fine." And I've said to them, "You know, you're gonna have to deal with me about being like that." I think it's remaining positive, helping others when you can. You know, I'm not religious in any way, but I think if you know, if I help someone, you know, hopefully along the line, you know, that favor will be returned in some capacity or in some kind of way. You know, be kind to others. You know, we never know what each one of us are always undergoing alongside whatever it is we're working on, for example. And just remain positive, remain passionate, and try and keep that drive going forwards. You know, there's this pressure within society, especially if those of a younger age, that you've got to do certain things by a certain point. You know, you've got to start a family, or you've got to get some stage in your career. You know, there's filmmakers out there that I've met that are 70, 80, still working, still going. You know, if it's something that you're passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life. And I very strongly try and live by that. And, you know, I love what I do, and there's so many things I'd like to do in the future, but you know, I've got time. Time is on my side, hopefully. So I think, yeah, remain positive, remain kind, and do your best in whatever it is you're doing, and try and return that favor to others as much as you can. Yeah, definitely. And I hope more people had that mindset going forwards, especially within the industry that, you know, we both aspire to be involved with or are involved in. You know, I think it's always important to have that mindset, and making sure we can, you know, mold it for the future. Essentially, you know, the world's your oyster.